right. So, so as Mike said, I'm going to sort of say both like what's happening now with Haiti. As Mike has said, we learned so much doing the piloting, and it was great to have been so involved in that, because having to lead it in Haiti, I mean, I think there's one thing that we learned through this process is that every single assessment is always going to be, everything's going to be different every time. How far you're trying to go, what the geographical challenges are, what the knowledge of your staff is, how many cars you have available, everything has an impact on the scope of your assessment. So Lili and I initially struggled with and how long does it take? Well, what are you trying to do exactly? You know, how many people do you have on your team? How many cars do you have? How hard is it to get from point A to point B? And so, you know, Mike's absolutely right. The piloting became a real challenge, and just getting them all set up in that. But like I said, I'm going to tell you about the next phase. And I'm going to start with Haiti. I'm breaking from my own script here. So I was in Jordan. Actually, I won't break from my own script. We've had 4 trainings to date. The first 2 trainings were in Washington and London. And it was really a hand-picked group of people because we wanted to make sure that the training, knowing how much information is in that book, we wanted to make sure that the trainings really got across the most important bits of it. We were training people who were going to be able to lead Emma. So here's your book, here's your plane ticket, go, right? That's what we were looking for. And so the London and Washington group were hand-picked people who were likely to be those with the book and the plane ticket, stepping on the ground going, okay, who's my team? And we had to make sure that the training covered all of those important issues. And we did make a couple of tweaks, but one of the things that we learned was, thanks to the help of Tony Dines, who helped us design the training overall, we actually got it really close to right the first time. So that was good. Although Miles, who was in the very, very first one, will be pleased to know we got more market emphasis the second time around in Washington. So in January and February of this year, we rolled out the finalized training in Jordan and in Bali. We had, this was a more open group. Basically, anybody whose organization felt that they were, leadership quality and the type of person who was going to be able to go out and lead, everyone was welcome. We combined the trainings with the cash CALP training that is available now. And we did that because we recognized that Emma might lead to us wanting to doing cash programs. We also recognize it might not. And so being able to understand that distinction, we thought it was good to have folks first going to an Emma course and then going to a cash, and being able to recognize whatever your assessment says, it may or may not result in cash. And we also combined it with the SEEP minimum standards for economic recovery in crises, which is basically like a sphere manual, companion module for economic programs. So we actually had 2 weeks of solid training, boom, 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 one right after the other, but they were all very, very linked. And so there is going to be, I'll talk about what's going to happen with future trainings in a minute. So here I am in Jordan, being the resource person on the training, and Haiti hit January 12th, as you probably know, which was 4 days before I got on the plane to go to Jordan, and I have people going, I think we're going to need to do an Emma in Jordan, in Haiti. Who do you have? So all day long I'm doing Emma, and all evening long I'm still doing Emma, trying to work with Lili to put together who was our Haiti team on the ground. And we were very, very lucky in the end that organizations really came together. It was a multi-agency Emma team at the end. We had 11 agencies represented, 18 people. And I would say about half and half Haitian and not Haitian, about half and half French as their first language and French not as their first language, which really, much as Mike said with Myanmar, brought home the challenges that you have when you're trying to train and lead something that is in a different language than the people that you're working with. But we got there. We got there because we had a really, really strong team. In Haiti, what happened was that we did it in about 10 days. We worked from the 7th to the 17th, and we amazingly were able to cover 4 market systems. And I think the reason that we were able to do 4 was in part because we had a largish team. 18 people is a lot of people on an assessment. But more than that, because the quality of people that the organizations had put forward they were really, really good people. So it was a bit easier to break out into 4 separate groups. So one of the first things that we looked at was selecting the market. And we looked at what all the critical issues, critical needs were in terms of non-food items, food items, and we just went through a selection, paring it down kind of process. We came up with rice and beans as the 2 food items that people prioritized based on what Haitian diets are. That's kind of seen as the thing. We wanted to have one that related to income because we knew that people's loss of income was a huge issue. And so we looked at construction labor, and what was the key question was, what is the ability of construction labor? Now I don't have the key question in my head, sorry about that, but how can construction labor contribute to people's income? The affected population was actually the whole of Port-au-Prince was what we looked at. So we had an income one, which was connected, in fact, to our shelter material one, which we started out with shelter materials and obviously had to decide, was it cement, was it sand, it ended up being corrugated iron sheeting, CGI. You've all seen it in Africa, the roofing that goes like this. Because that is an integral piece of transitional shelters, which we knew were going to be the next step. And so to talk briefly about the challenges we faced, obviously language was one of them. My French was rusty when I got there. It's better now, having practiced with it for every day for hours. The other big challenge was time. During the time that we were there, I had truly underestimated the amount of time that you sit in traffic in Port-au-Prince. The traffic there is so bad that I never could have expected that we would spend 3 or 4 hours in traffic on any given day. Meaning, you may have enough cars, but they're all sitting in traffic. They're not out there talking to people with warehouses and farmers and so on. And we had 3 days of mourning declared during the middle of the assessment, which also gave us less time. That said, I could tell that it worked, that the teams were really, they got it. It was working for the teams because even on the day of the presentation to, the whole world, the donors and all the agencies and whoever was willing to come, we had 97 people show up on the day of the presentation. But on that day, I still had teams coming to me going, okay, I just need 5 more minutes for my slide because last night we went out and we talked to a couple more people and I just got a little bit more information. Do you really need the final report today? Because if I could get it to you tomorrow. They were in their stride. They were getting it and they were recognizing what they still wanted to get more of. I think there was a challenge of getting comfortable with how much information you can gather in what period of time. What we're getting is not statistically significant information about people's drop in household income. It's a range. It looks like it's about this much, but what we're getting is information that allows you to make a decision. How big of a priority is this in the scope of everything else that's going on? So it's not, a 62.3 drop in income across households. It's roughly 60 to 70%. But that's enough. If you're writing a proposal or if a donor is making a decision about how much money to put towards a certain sector, that's enough to give you a sense of importance. And that's what Emma does. I mean, household economy analysis, HEA, I never get acronyms right. HEA is much better at giving more detailed information, and we always have said that that's what you should do when you have the time. Emma is for when you don't have the time. So very briefly, you're very welcome to, of course, read the 4 Emma reports that have come out. They're in a variety of places, including One Response and on the Emma D groups. And Mike, where else are they?
Here, they're on the. Sorry, it was a backdrop to you.
Oh, fabulous.
They're on the Emma website.
Yep. So they're there. But very briefly, because I know people are going to ask eventually, with beans, we learned that because of the work that was done after the last hurricane, beans look pretty good. If they are included in the food packages, the food distributions, as long as it's local purchase, there's probably close to enough already available in country, roughly. Rice was also looked at, as I said. Prior to the earthquake, about half of the rice was imported anyway. So again, as long as local farmers are getting, as long as we're using local farmers to purchase rice for the distributions first and making sure that they get the signals that they should plant, they will get people buying from them, there is a market there, then it's okay that there's also imports because they were there before. And it's just a case of using the systems that were already there. It's not just automatically bad that there's rice imports. On labor, unfortunately, we learned that if Haitians are going to get the benefit of the increase in construction that's going to happen, we're going to have to train about 100,000 people as soon as possible. Because even prior to the earthquake, engineers, there was a problem with skilled labor. Engineers would come out of the university with kind of 60 to 70% of the skills that they needed. And even though the government has done some really good things about trying to upgrade the curricula and things like that, all 4 main universities that graduated, that were known for graduating engineers, and a number of vocational schools were destroyed. So there is a huge space for temporary NGO presence in the training sector, ideally coordinated with rebuilding the institutions that should normally do that. But it's actually probably more than 100,000 people need to be trained at all skill levels, really, from engineers down to the lowest skilled. So a lot of work to do there. And the corrugated iron sheeting was one of the places. It wasn't only, we also learned this looking at the rice, but warehousing is going to be a big issue. And I know that this is one that, in fact, folks who are still on the ground after Emma are looking further into the warehousing issue. But we started hearing stories like, an NGO came and bought all of my construction supplies, but they left it in my warehouse, so I can't bring in more because it's still sitting there. And us just not being conscientious of what it means when we take up warehouse space that should be used in other ways. So, and the other big thing that came out of that particular market system analysis was that people preferred to receive their reconstruction materials in kind. So vouchers and other in-kind methodologies were recommended. I know vouchers are cash, but you get an in-kind thing. Next steps for Emma. So we're really excited. We expect to have an extension of our OFDA grant, which will go for another 18 months so that we can get some more training in. So we're very pleased about that. We're looking at about 6 more trainings over the next 18 months, and there's going to be a sign-up sheet next door for those who specifically want to receive the invitations to the trainings, or put your friends' email on there. I'm fine with that too. We're currently looking at the locations. We know, because we've already done them in Asia, Middle East, the US, and the UK, Africa is the obvious sort of next place for us to do it. And we'll continue to look at a variety of locations, but I think Africa's pretty much on the list for next. And the website, you've got the address for the website there. We are going to continue to make that a lively resource, in fact. We want to have the Emma reports on there. We want to have lessons learned on there, have a sort of available listing of people who've been trained in Emma. So if your organization doesn't have capacity yet, but something happens, you know, God forbid, next week, and you want to get someone to come do an Emma with you, those are the kinds of things that we want to have on the website to make it a real resource for people who are doing Emma on the ground, as well as, you know, there's a whole list of resources that if we had put them in the Emma manual itself, the manual would be this thick. So those kinds of resources will also be available on the website. I think that's it.
Thanks, Karen.